Community Programming presents Stars Across a Sea of Time. The Hokulea Lives On. This documentary explores the cultural significance of the Hokulea Voyages and their impact on the Hawaiians. See how a talented young Hawaiian acquired the ancient art and science of non-instrument navigation. Watch Stars Across a Sea of Time, Monday evenings at 10, only on Channel 20.
I believe that the people that survived in the Pacific over 40,000 years as they ventured into the ocean are really, truly ocean people. And that they have, when early European people came here, they marveled at the skills and the ability of the Polynesians to work and survive on the ocean. I mean, they were great sailors. Even though they didn't know anything about modern ships, they can adapt to sea. When you go to Micronesia and you see these people, or you sail with them, who live on the ocean, these people are tremendous seafarers. I don't think anybody can go and do the navigation just by studying. It takes someone who's willing to commit to the ocean, like all the crew members do, and they'll all tell you that there's a certain amount of suffering that goes on there, and that not everybody is willing to either take on that kind of suffering or be able to withstand it.
In May 1987, a 60-foot-long voyaging canoe reached Hawaii. It actually had been built in Hawaii in 1976, and in the intervening years it sailed over 24,000 miles, that's once around the world at the equator, around Polynesian waters, for two purposes. First, to find out how the ancient Polynesians could have done it, by actually sailing and navigating without instruments all over the ancient migration routes. And second, by having Hawaiians and other Polynesians participate, indeed take leading roles in this effort to recreate their technology to find out how their ancestors did it. The issue is how Polynesia was settled, how these people found these islands and managed to establish thriving societies on them, really goes back, in European terms at least, 400 years, when the first European voyages entered the Pacific. They were surprised, very surprised, to find, as they sailed into the Pacific, that on virtually every island they found people there, and not just a few straggling people, but large societies. In the case of Hawaii, 250,000, maybe 500,000 or more people here. What was particularly surprising to them was that they, the Europeans, had only developed the technology to enter the ocean. They were very proud of that technology. Yet they were these people who only had stone tools, only had canoes, had no compasses, had preceded them into this greatest of world's ocean, and founded these wonderful societies. So, how do we explain this? And that's been the puzzle for the last 4 centuries. And we think with Hokulea we found the answer. So in the early 1970s, we formed the Polynesian Voyaging Society here in Hawaii. The idea there was to actually build a very large voyaging canoe and sail over historic, or you might say legendary, voyaging routes. The route in question was between Hawaii and down to Tahiti, across the equator, and back. That's the equivalent distance of sailing to California and back from Hawaii, about 5,000 nautical miles. The distance was crucial because Andrew Sharp had said it was humanly impossible for anybody to navigate purposely for more than 300 miles. Therefore, all voyaging in Polynesia over 300 miles was accidental. We said, well, the legends tell us that they went back and forth between Hawaii and Tahiti, and we think we can do it. So we built Hokulea, a very large voyaging canoe, tested her out, and got ready for the voyage. We had a problem, though, how to navigate. Intellectually, we could reconstruct the Polynesian navigation system, but we felt it was more appropriate to get an ancient Polynesian navigator. But as I said, there were none around. But in Micronesia, little islands here, just off the Philippines and north of New Guinea, there are a few people who still know how to navigate the ancient way, in a way similar to the Polynesians, indeed their cousins. So we borrowed a man called Mau Piailug, a marvelous traditional navigator. I said, okay, Mau, we're going to have you navigate back and forth. The round trip was crucial because Sharp had said round trip voyaging. So we wanted to do a round trip Hawaii and Tahiti. In 1976, we sailed from Hawaii, and a month later, we reached Tahiti, just as planned, with Mau navigating all the way without instruments. It was a success. We showed that you could sail a canoe that far across and against wind and current and sail it without instruments whatsoever. But all in all, the voyage was a grand success and went a long way toward refuting Sharp and developing a better picture of things. But there was something basically missing. And this was particularly felt by the Hawaiian community. The Hawaiians had been involved in the design of the canoe. Indeed, the leading designer was Hawaiian Herb Kane, co-founder of the Polynesian Voyaging Society. They had been involved in running the Polynesian Voyaging Society. They were the majority of the crew members on the crew, but that wasn't enough. The thing missing was no Hawaiian had navigated. And I think that was important to them because this was the supreme intellectual achievement, you might say, of their ancestors. The ability to navigate across this great ocean without a compass, without charts, without any indication whatsoever except that provided by the stars, the swells, the wind, the seabirds, and other natural signs. Fortunately, we had recruited in 1973, at the beginning of the voyage, a young Hawaiian named Nainoa Thompson. He didn't have a chance to learn much from Mau during the voyage. Indeed, he only sailed on the return voyage, so he didn't sail with Mau. But after he got back, he began studying on his own, from books, from staying up all night looking at the night sky, how the stars appeared to revolve overhead, and how one could use them to navigate, how one could use them as a compass. And using the night sky and the planetarium and his own acute sense and intelligence, he was able to not only grasp some basic principles of Polynesian navigation, but invent some of his own, all non-instrument, all non-chart, non-compass, that is magnetic compass. In 1980, that's 4 years after our first voyage, the plan was to go to Tahiti again, this time with Nainoa navigating. But he didn't feel confident in his self-taught knowledge. So we said, let's get Mau to give it some finishing touches. There was a problem because Mau had been dissatisfied with the 76 voyage in many ways and really had said he didn't want to come back to Hawaii. But Nainoa flew back to Micronesia, contacted him personally, impressed Mau with his seriousness, and Mau said, I'll come. So he flew here to Hawaii, worked with Nainoa for 6 months, and Nainoa was ready. And in 1980, Nainoa navigated the canoe with Mau as not a backseat navigator, but really there for emergency in case needed. He was never needed. Nainoa took the canoe to Tahiti and back. A magnificent feat in itself, and particularly if you remember that this has not been done by a Hawaiian or any other Polynesian probably for the last 700 years. So in a sense, the Hawaiians now, and other Polynesians felt now they had succeeded in relearning this ancient art. And they could have rested there, but they didn't want to rest on their laurels or rest otherwise. They said Hokulea is made for sailing, and we haven't seen much of Polynesia at all. So they said, let's take a long voyage, let's call it a voyage of rediscovery. For ourselves, rediscovering the rest of Polynesia. For the rest of Polynesia, rediscover voyaging technology, the canoes and navigation systems. So in 1985 to 1987, with Nainoa navigating and Nainoa planning the voyage, Hokulea sailed down to Tahiti, here, then over to the Cook Islands, down to New Zealand, or Aotearoa, as the Maoris prefer to call it, then up to Tonga, to Samoa, back to the Cook Islands, back to Tahiti, to the Tuamotus, and then back to Hawaii. All in all, 12,000 miles, or halfway around the world. A very exciting voyage, from which we learned a lot. This is a most unusual project. Nainoa, for example, is widely acknowledged around Hawaii, Tahiti, and other places as a person who has been able to recapture the past, to go back in time and to learn this great intellectual system of non-instrument navigation. And he's you might say he's a modern-day cultural hero to Polynesians, particularly the kids. We take the canoe around the island here in Hawaii, around the islands, and we bring kids on board in every place we stop, every beach or port, and they just love it.
Okay, Cookie. Slowly. Not too fast, right? Yes, just walk the lane. Okay, good. Okay, right there. Come up. Walk it up. Okay, the guys on this side, you guys going to go down this hole, climb all the way to the back, and come onto the rear of the canoe. Okay, go ahead. One at a time, though. Take your time. Take your guys' time. No pushing on there. Look around. There's a radio box right here.
I want it
4th grade, just hold on. 5th grade's going to sing first.
Hokulea. Makau, be free. Ai, mai kai. Kahea. Hokulea. Ha. Hokulea. Ea. Battling the ocean highway. Ea. Hokulea. Battling the ocean highway. Sailing from Hawaii to Tahiti. Nainoa navigating. Sailing from Hawaii to Tahiti. Nainoa navigating.
I would also mention that the distinguished role that Mau Piailug has held as our first navigator and as a teacher of Nainoa. His goal has been, his sort of personal goal has been to preserve this knowledge in his own islands and to pass it on to his Polynesian brothers. And for that, he received an honorary doctorate at the University of Hawaii last year.
The next honorary degree is awarded to Mau Piailug. Mau Piailug is a traditional artisan, inspiring teacher, explorer, and one of the few masters of traditional ocean-related skills of Pacific Islanders. Of the many people who contributed to the success of Hokuleʻa's voyage, Mau Piailug stands above all others. It was Mau's willingness to share his knowledge, experience, and remarkable skills that made the first voyage possible. In addition, Mau has helped foster a new appreciation of the navigational skills that made the settlement of Hawaii and other Polynesian islands possible, and has initiated a number of young Polynesians into the otherwise lost world of traditional navigation. Mau Piailug, please join me at the podium, and Regent Brandt, please assist me in conferring the degree.
I think Hawaiians would be very interested in the actual skill of doing it, and why Nainoa in particular, but other people as well, decided to do it. They would be interested in things, as I myself was, in how Mau, who was Micronesian, came to tell the Polynesian, which is Nainoa, how to redo something that essentially Hawaiians have lost the art of doing. It's the connections that are important to us, and not so much that it was Hawaiians that did it as opposed to Tahitians or some other Polynesian group. I don't think that's essential. The other thing I think is important, and I guess some Hawaiians think this too, I don't know, is that it made Hawaiians feel proud of a past that for a long time has been degraded as a missionary, businessmen degraded past, that Hawaiians were somehow illiterate, they didn't write, Hawaiians were non-Christian or un-Christian or pre-Christian. And what the Hokulea did was say that in the time when Hawaiis were not here, in pre-Hale Hawaii, Hawaiians were great navigators. And that's a part of the good Hawaiian response, is to say, yes, we were proud of what we did, and we did it very well.
First time I heard of the Hokulea, I was quite young, in 1976, and my grandparents talked about the Hokulea. Talked about a ship that was being built to sail to Tahiti and go back to our homeland, where we came from. I was very excited about hearing about this ship, this boat. It was really the first time I felt anything Hawaiian, growing up in Hana, growing up with my grandparents and the old people was Hawaiian, but also this is the first time I had someone else telling me what it was to be Hawaiian, what it was, that this is a symbol of your culture. And I was very excited about it. I remember when it came into Hana once, it was still young, and the Hokulea docked at the wharf in Hana Bay. And we were kids, so we went down and jumped in the water and swam with it and went under it.
For myself, I think it's a fantastic story, and it belongs to our other great stories of achievements throughout the last 2,000 years for us and 10,000 years for other Polynesians. It's a story of accomplishment, and in that sense, all of us can be proud about it. The individual stories, are more or less stories of accomplishment. Nainoa, who was the navigator, the captain, that's an individual odyssey of how he came to reclaim something that our ancestors had done a long time ago. What it means for linking Hawaii with the South Pacific, I think, is very important, because the South Pacific Islanders have always looked to Hawaii, as Hawaiians occasionally have done, as being so Americanized they aren't Polynesian anymore. That's a part of it. That's a part of this, the re-identification with being Hawaiian as opposed to being American. There isn't any question that the Hokule'a was a very big event that lasted over several years, and what it has meant for Hawaiians and for other people is phenomenal, really, because the idea of it as perceived and carried out linked together all these different Polynesian groups in the Pacific. You know, National Geographic filmed it. I don't know what they thought of it. They were thought of it as another in a series of a long line of, you know, television spectaculars. It was, everybody had their own view of it. I first saw the National Geographic coverage when I was at the University of Chicago. It made me want to come home. I'm sure lots of Hawaiians who were going to school at the time away from Hawaii thought about coming home right away, because it made me homesick.
We have to train younger generations in this art, you know, in sailing. I mean, right now we're very used to having our airplanes and our cars and things, but I can't see why it's not possible to have canoes again going into island. Make it a part of the living culture. You know, for myself, I've heard a lot about Nainoa Thompson, and I've listened to him speak, and I admire him. I admire him greatly, because he's taken a very lonely path in life, you know. He's become almost enlightened in what he's doing. And it's a hard path to follow. I think that he's done a great service to us, but also I think that, you know, the time has come to start training others, to pass the knowledge on. I don't know if this is happening, but I think it should happen. I'm very proud of him. You know, it makes me proud to be Hawaiian.
Le aloha, e vale ana oe, I kamakane, kaulara o, henone, au hea, o henone, kamakane, kawili, aloha.
And another thing that I learned was the lashings that we do in Hawaii, Hawaiian lashings and the Micronesian lashings are completely a different type of lashing. So when Mau Piailug came into the picture, and Mau's a beautiful man. Oh, he's so great, you know. I like him. But he taught us guys a lashing, which a lot of people say that it wasn't Hawaiian. But regardless of what point you look at, you know, as long as the thing is lashed, in what manner you look at it, whether it's Hawaiian, or it's Micronesian, or Polynesian, or whatever, you have to go with the strength of which tie will work better than the other one. And by Mau's lashing, it seems reasonable that his lashes were so different from ours that it was like each individual lashing was on its own. Because if one breaks, only one breaks. And in a Hawaiian tie, if one breaks, all will break. It's great, you know, that Nainoa learned a lot from Mr. Mau Piailug, you know, because he's the master. As far as I'm concerned, he's the master. Because I know that if you sail with Mau, you're always in good hands. You're always in good hands. Because you can be off course for 2 days and 3 days or 4 days or 5 days like we were, and he still can bring you back home and make up time by going off course and sailing off course and then making up for about 2-3 days, you know, that you lost. Say you lost 7 days, and he'll take that canoe and sail it for about 2 or 3 days off course, and then the next 2 days you'll be right back on course. You see, Mau is a strange guy, but he knows his way about on that ocean. Because I'll sail with him anytime. It's something that I really I'm glad that we prove to the rest of the people outside of Hawaii that us people from Hawaii, we still can sail over vast waters and ocean and whatever you call it, and then to still get there by sailing without instruments.
The central theme here is that of discovery. The Polynesians discovered these islands throughout the Pacific, and there aren't any new islands to discover, but there are new depths in our understanding. So that's what Nainoa is about, and that's what the Polynesian Voyaging Society is about. How can we better understand those ancient people? This then is, we call it human navigation or wayfinding. This whole concept that we're dealing with is that of human navigation. How it's possible for the human mind to stay oriented and find the way. As I said, the key to this all is in knowing the stars. That's why this machine is so important. So we have in the sky the North Star up here and Southern Cross down there. Well, Nainoa, when he came here to this room when he was 23, and he knew that he wanted to learn the stars because coming back from Tahiti in 1976, he saw 2 stars that set at the same time. And in that flash of insight, and insight favors the prepared mind, his mind was all ready for such an experience, he suddenly saw, hey, there's something here that's very important. We can use this in finding the way. Because he reasoned, as we go northward, one of those stars is going to set before the other one. Either this star will set first or this star will set first. So that was the basic way of his learning the stars. Contrast that with Mau Piailug. Mau Piailug comes out of tradition. His navigational knowledge comes out of tradition. He says, my father and my grandfather teach me. But Nainoa, and also it's a cultural insertion on his part, he says, if my people didn't do this anymore, if they didn't sail this way, we wouldn't be people anymore. So there, Mau comes out of tradition. So he's learning the stars, and if the stars aren't there, He may have to wait 6 months till they come back again and he see the stars that he's wanting to. Not with Nainoa. Nainoa has this advantage of this machine. So with this machine, he can sail back and forth, and we can go forward and backward in time, no problem at all. So you want to see the sky as it was a few months ago, 2 hours ago, 10 years ago, whatever. It's all available right here because it is a scientific instrument. It wasn't available to Mau Piailug. So there are these two ways. One is tradition, the other is inquiry. So Nainoa came here, and for hundreds of hours we'd sail back and forth searching for clues. The simultaneous rising and setting of stars, that was one clue. Another very important clue for where you are and latitude, how to remember, is, as we've said, the North Star and the Southern Cross. If we take a look at a star chart like this, and hold it upright, here we have on a chart a picture of the sky. Actually, to use the chart, it represents the dome of night. These are the stars right along the meridian, the north-south. So that's what the planetary machine gives us. Right down here is the Southern Cross. There's the upright and the cross bar. So this is the sky about 9 o'clock in mid-May. So there it is. And the North Star, it's up here by my thumb, right in there. In all of Polynesia, in all the United States, Hawaii is the only place where you can see both North Star and Southern Cross. So here's the setup, and this is what the machine is set up for right now. Now then, we're going to go south. So as we go south, you have two ways of thinking of it. The stars get higher or the horizon depresses. But what I experience as I go south, the Southern Cross is higher and higher, the North Star is lower. Then I get to a place where the North Star is at the horizon. I go farther, one step farther, and the North Star is beneath the horizon. We're south of the equator, no more stars. So this is the dome of the night that the stars represent. These are clues. This is not navigation. These are clues. This is knowledge that is necessary that Nainoa had to have in order to be able to make the voyage. Stars are clues. But what do you do when the stars don't appear on those cloudy nights? When the clouds wrap around, there's no moon, no planets, no stars, no nothing. Look right over the edge of the canoe, 3 feet down to the water, so dark you cannot see the water. What then? Then the clues, the only clues you have, are in the surface of the sea. So let's think about it this way. Let's say that this is the Hokulea right here, okay? And we're going in that direction. Let's call it southeast. Okay, out there is the southeast trade winds, and they push on the surface of the sea and they generate the southeast swell. So you can see what happens. Those big waves that maintain orientation days and weeks and months at a time, if we're going southeast, the bows will strike that wave and the vessel rock back and then forward as the wave crest passes beneath the stern. So we have a rocking motion southeast because we're going right into the southeast swell. 90 degrees from it is northeast. Here in Hawaii, we're in the belt of the northeast trade winds. They generate the northeast swell. So the winds push on the water, generate that wave train that comes this way. So if we're sailing this way, southeast, and we get a swell from the northeast, that's going to raise the left hull, the port hull. That'll ride the crest of the wave, followed in a snap roll by the starboard hull. So it's a combination of those two motions, rock and roll, or rock and roll if you want, that enable the navigator to stay oriented. It's the feeling of the sea and the integrating it with the information he gets from the stars. So the navigator then has to stay on the navigator's perch most of the time, scarcely moving from that platform, continuously processing information. In a sense, the canoe itself extends outward the body of the navigator into those coherencies of nature, and that way, by feeling the sea, he can know what's happening, sometimes hundreds of miles beyond the horizon as the earth curves right around there. A Mau Piailug himself is so sensitive to the motion of the ocean when he's aboard there that he can actually be below deck and tell by the feel of the vessel if the steersman is performing his task adequately or not. So learning is risk, and that's what our lives are about. the Polynesian Voyaging Society itself has risked to gain the knowledge that we have. And in the process, we have lost one life, that of Eddie Aikau. But Nainoa and crew were willing to risk and to get out there onto the sea and experience that. And of course their knowledge, the knowledge that they gained, enriches us all. So it's part of a tradition, part of the tradition of the Polynesians of old, hundreds, thousands of years ago. Before that, the people of Oceania, way thousands and thousands of years ago, 20, 30,000 years ago, gradually moving eastward out of Asia. And vessels that couldn't make it at first, but then gradually they found ways of making canoes to be able to sail into the wind. And after that voyage that Nainoa successfully completed in 1980, at a luau celebration, Mau, justly proud and happy of his student Nainoa, turns to him and says, "Hey, Nainoa." "Yeah? Hey, Nainoa. Now you know all there is to know." Nainoa lowered his head, for he was touched with that blessing of the master, who then went on to add, with the true wisdom of a master of the art of wayfinding who knows what lies beyond the art. "But," said Mau, "it'll be 20 years before you see."
And the way that I see these components of navigation, there's the first is the course strategy. And that is the information you need to know before you leave on a trip. You know, that's the course bearing from the island you left to where you're going to, and all the wind and the ocean current information you have to know before you leave. The second is a dead reckoning system, a system of holding direction. And this system of navigation, that direction has to be maintained 24 hours a day, all of the days until you find the island you're looking for. And the third body of knowledge is really of determining latitude, and that's done by the stars. Latitude is just really a distance you are north or south from the equator. And the fourth body of knowledge is what I call like expanding your landfall. And that is when you start to approach a target of maybe a group of islands that you've been maybe at sea for 20 to 30 days, there are certain clues that can tell you that land is near, roughly what direction it is, and how far away it is, roughly. And that's by the flight of seabirds, the color of clouds, the changes in the ocean swells, and just sometimes the kind of debris you find in the ocean. And then the fifth body of knowledge really is determining the weather. Just by looking at the horizon at certain times of the day, you look at the color of the clouds, the movements, and basically trying to observe continuously the changes in what the weather pattern has been in that recent part of the trip. When you see changes, you have to be able to observe that and then be able to make a prediction as to what the weather is going to do, so that you can be ahead of yourself in terms of what decisions you need to make in terms of your course, or if you think bad weather is going to come, strong winds, you might need to drop your sails. Those kinds of decision making. Well, this place at Lanai Lookout is a place that Mau did a lot of his teaching. And we would come here in the early morning before dawn and watch the sky change from dark to light. And one of the things that we studied was the colors in the skies. Well, actually, you're trying to combine the ocean with the sky, with the heavens. You're looking at the early morning stars, and you're looking at the clouds and the different shapes and colors in the sky, and you're combining that with what the ocean surface looks like. It's a way of trying to melding that whole environment together to get a better understanding of what the weather patterns are going to be like. Because understanding the weather, if you're able to understand the weather, you're going to be a much safer sailor, because you'll be able to make the proper decisions while you're on the way at sea. Navigation is not just learning a certain amount of information. It's not just okay, you know 100 stars now, and that therefore you're going to be able to make the trip. A lot of it depends on how you behave at sea. You've got to commit to not being able to sleep very long, 2 to 3 hours a day, and just in cat naps, and just whether you're going to be able to stick out the whole the voyage and stay with it and be able to memorize. A lot of the navigation, determining where you are, is only from being able to memorize where you went, and so that for the whole month you have to memorize your course and your speed, and that tells you where you are. There's nothing in the sky that's going to show you any kind of where you're going to be at any kind of certain position, like a coordinate system, so that the success of the voyage is more it's not so much about just information. That's the basis for it. You have to have knowledge, but then there's a whole part about being able to perform. Well, we were really fortunate in terms of getting into any kind of real emergency crisis, mainly because the crew is so good. The crew members in Hokulea are well trained, dedicated, and they take care of each other. And I cannot stress that point enough. That what we were learning was from Mau, like Will was saying, when he came here, in terms of basic identification of stars, how the celestial sphere works, how the heavenly bodies move, I knew that already when we really trained for intensely. What I didn't know was the ocean, how to read the signs of the ocean, and that's where the real art is. So I think the most rewarding things of my experience of Mau was being at sea, either while we sailed or when we went fishing or we just went out to study on my motorboat. And that it was more of the deeper parts of navigation and the art forms of navigation that was essential. That, see, what I had was a lot of information, but not that about the heavens. But that's surely not going to get you through the daytime. You got to be able to read the ocean swells to guide you through the middle part of the day, and then when it's cloudy at night, you got to know how to get through those bad nights and hold the course. And those are the kind of things that Mau taught. I mean, Mau taught us a lot of things, not just knowledge. He taught us how to conduct ourselves, how to behave, how to stay calm at sea under the rough conditions. I mean, he was like a father to us at sea. He really took it like children and just led us by the hand and showed us really the old ways.
From the University of Hawaii Lab School to visit the Maritime Museum. These are students going into the 6th and 7th grade, and one of the areas that they've been studying is about the Hokulea. What did you learn, Caroline? What is the Hokulea? What type of a canoe? Double hull canoe, 60 feet long. Who sailed that canoe? The early Polynesians. So what was what were they trying to do by building this canoe?
Trying to see what kind of passages might be in the Polynesians.
Okay. Who navigated this canoe? What was the name of the well, okay, it made more than one trip, didn't it? Okay, and in the first trip it was navigated by a man from where? The Marshall Islands, all right, and his name is what? Remember? His first name? Mau, that's right, his first name was Mau. And that trip was back in 1976, okay? Then they did another trip that took 2 years. What was that trip called? The Voyage of Rediscovery. And who navigated that ship? Nainoa Thompson. How did he do it? What was the method? Star. Waves in the currents. And what was that called? That kind of navigating is called what? Wayfinding. Good!
My name is Charlene Chen Lum, and I'm the Director of Programs for the Kamehameha Schools. For the past 2 years, we've been working in cooperation with the Polynesian Voyaging Society to sponsor field trips for our students that are in the DOE to come to a summer sail program that would involve visiting the Hokulea and also learning about Polynesian voyaging. This program started last year with the help of Nainoa Thompson. We sat down with him and discussed whether it was possible to go from island to island, where all our different sites are, to conduct a field trip for the kids that would tie in with a unit that they're learning about Polynesian voyaging.
Will we use the stars?
The unit itself deals not only with Hokulea, but with ancient Hawaiian voyaging all the way to modern times. And of course, the highlight would be a visit to the Hokulea, because there they see history repeating itself, where people are actually doing the things that our ancestors did. So last year when we started this program, it was a new adventure, and Nainoa was involved in most of the sails because we weren't quite sure that it could be accomplished to go to have 14 different visits in a period of about 30 days. It turned out to be quite successful. Last year, about 4,000 kids got to experience the Hokulea and meet with the crew, and this year we decided to do it again. So we're servicing about the same number of kids, if not more, at 15 different sites throughout the islands. Nainoa is not on the voyages with them as he was last year. Chad Babayan is the navigator, but Nainoa is still closely involved. He was there at the planning stages, and he comes occasionally to go and visit the kids on the boat. We think it's a really good experience for the kids, and all of this usually gets written up by the kids. The crew has received thank you letters, and for some kids it's really changed their life in terms of feeling proud to be Hawaiian or feeling proud of their ancestors and realizing what they can accomplish. We try to make this a lesson where kids will learn to set goals for themselves, just as the Hokulea crew did, and then to work towards those goals. There's a lot of valuable information about teamwork, about survival skills, about planning. And as you can see from these experiences, most of the kids are really enjoying what they're doing. So this is a way that we feel we can make education come alive. Not only do they learn about Polynesian voyaging, but they get to come and actually talk to people who've done it and see it and get to taste and touch and things that they would not normally get to do. And we find that many kids find that this kind of education is more rewarding than what they get in a regular school year, because it takes on a real new meaning. They're not just reading in a book, but they're actually getting to see it and do it.
Great, Kelly. That's good, Kelly. Kelly will show you what you folks heard of Nainoa Thompson. You folks know who Nainoa is? Who is Nainoa? The navigator, right? On both sides of the canoe, you see where Auntie Kelly's sitting? That's the navigational platform. Up the Nainoa, sit up there every day and every night, and maybe get 1 hour sleep throughout the whole time. And his main job is to keep the canoe headed in the right direction. He'll study the stars and pick our course. If it gets overcast like this, then he'll go ahead and direct the canoe by the pattern of the waves hitting the canoe.
Non-instrument navigation is perhaps the single most sophisticated skill that pre-technological man has ever developed, and that would include the development, to my way of thinking, of mathematics or the pyramids or gunpowder or a sextant, a chronometer, a compass, what have you. I think this is the skill of non-instrument navigation is far more complex than any other skill pre-technological man ever developed. Anyway, with that said, Nainoa came back, and one thing led to another. Even he then, I knew, did not have any idea of just where his interests would take him. And with tutoring from Mau Piailug and Will Kaselka and many others along the way, it's taken him to where today he's arguably the one of the top non-instrument navigators in the world, of I say, which are maybe only a handful of others, and without a doubt the finest in Polynesia. And he's now come to where he's passing on a lot of his skills to others via publications and books and talks and classes and what have you. There are other people that potentially have Nainoa's blank slate, if you will, that have the same potential skills, but what they don't perhaps have is the discipline. I mean, Nainoa knows, like nobody else, the thousands of hours that it took to get to where he is today.
Let me get this thing clear. I'm not the only navigator on Hokulea. There's two others that are very good, and one of them's actually made one of the voyages in the voyage of rediscovery. He did the navigation completely by himself, and that is Chad Babayan from Maui. And the other navigator, his name is Shorty Burleman from the Big Island, who is extremely close to Mau and probably has the most in Hawaii, except for Lino who lives here, probably has the most traditional amount of knowledge in his mind, would be Shorty Burleman, because of the dedication that he's kept to trying to learn as pure the knowledge as he could from Mau. Just that commitment, you commit to the ocean, when I think about taking on a trip and sailing, I know it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, and there's going to be pain and there's going to be suffering for everybody, and we all know that, and so that you really got to get your body and your mind geared to getting prepared. And then when you go, you don't think about the land, you only think about the task, and you think about the place that you're trying to go, and that's all part of, I think, of the success. So that the success of finding islands is a tremendous group effort. In fact, I think that in terms of people working together, it is the greatest example of people having the hardest things to accomplish under the worst living conditions. And that's all part of that kind of preparation, so that it goes way beyond just information and just what gifted talent you might have been given.
Thank you very much.
flamboyant rituals and mysterious beliefs. Ancestral humans struggled with unknown forces, seeking to understand, hoping to control. Now you can read about that struggle in Divine Magic, the world of the supernatural. This fascinating new book based on the SBS television series can be yours for only $39.95, and you can order it now by calling 1-300-303-028. Enter the shadowy world of voodoo. Learn of the gods who feasted on human blood. Explore channeling and spiritualism. Discover the facts about witches and the truth about monsters and werewolves. Divine Magic, an authoritative book of myths, mysteries and miracles. $39.95. Order your copy of Divine Magic now. Call 1-300-303-028. Welcome to Dateline. In this edition, can international pressure stop the bloodshed in the Middle East and the guerrilla group that survived to fight the growing web of violence, corruption and injustice in Mexico?
In a secret jungle location, the EPR shows off its wares. Sophisticated modern weapons, pump-action shotguns and old